Well, today I've got some advice on fall pruning. Well, not really fall pruning, but there are a few things you can do. I'll explain in a minute. Well, I just zipped around the garden center of my trailer and picked up some typical plants that really you shouldn't prune in the fall. Typically, these are early flowering spring plants, and I got some examples there to show you and the reasons why you wouldn't prune, especially not now. So this is an azalea. Half the leaves probably will fall off it, but the flower buds are actually trapped in there. And if you prune it now, trim it back, you're cutting all the flowers for next year. The other thing pruning now does, it could stimulate new growth, and that new growth won't have a chance to harden up. And so when the frost, the heavy frost does come, it will damage the new growth and the plant will suffer accordingly. Oh, here's a plant that suffered already. It was the only rhododendron I had. Rhododendron is the same thing. The flower buds are set midsummer. In fact, there's one there. I'm sorry about the poor example, but that will produce flowers next year. And here's a classic example. This is a forsythia. It's a slightly less common variety, but it shows my point perfectly well. All the flower buds are already set in the axils. Again, the leaves will fall off. All of those buds, typically on a forsythia, are flower buds. That's why you get that tremendous golden bell look all the way down the stems. This is one of those Korean spice viburnums. And again, they flower very, very early. Something that causes more questions than I ever get is, why doesn't my blue hydrangea flower? Now, typically, people talking about blue hydrangeas, I know it's a macrophylla, and they have a more coarser leaf like this. And this one's flowered well. It flowered well for us because we had it under cover in the winter. The problem is with macrophyllas is that, just like all these other plants behind us, they produce the flower buds in the axils, the leaf axils. If you do have one of these, don't cut them back yet. You could just thin them out and make it safe from the snow. Leave some of the thicker branches. If you can give it some kind of protection, it might help, but I have to say, I don't recommend planting them. There are lots of other hydrangeas, and I'm going to talk about one right now that is well worth growing. So come with me and I'll show you what we do with this one. This is a panicled hydrangea. They flower every year without fail. They flower on new growth. So whatever I cut off here isn't going to be spoiling the flowering, because the new growth in the spring produces the flowers. I'm going to show you what I do here. So have a look at this. This is before shot. All right, so what I'm looking for is when I did the prune last year, and I can see the cut there, and then you had two shoots coming off from that one cut. I'm going to go about an inch above that, and I'm going to shorten it. Just throw the stuff on the ground. I'll rake it up later, or even better, I'll get someone else to do it. Anything dead I'm cutting out. Anything duplicating, going the same way as another stem. If not, I'm going back to the previous year's cut and going slightly above it, so we'll get even more flowers. So I've cut it here. It's going to flower about this high. If I cut it here, it will flower this height. So they're very controllable plants for around your house. Well, this is a Hakunashiki willow. You probably read on the tag it's going to be 5 foot high, 7 foot wide. That is a load of nonsense. They get quite huge. They can be 15, 20 feet across. They're a little bit weak, so they can break open. So the pruning here is to encourage more shooting early in spring. And the lovely thing about willows, if you ever prune them back, they can form new shoots anywhere on the stem, adventitious shoots, they call them, buds. The analogy is that these look like those dandelion stalks with a seed head, but massive ones. Now this is what remains of a little rose of Sharon we have in a large container. Nothing wrong with it. It flowers late in the season. It does what all rose of Sharons do, late season flowers. But there's one problem. These things. Some varieties, in fact most of the old-fashioned varieties, produce these lovely seed heads, which are not so lovely when they land on the ground. I'm going to split one open. They're full of seeds, and you can have a nightmare of seedlings come around. They have a taproot that goes down very, very quickly, very deep. There's a little baby one in there. I'm going to pull him up, and you can see that just germinated a few weeks ago, and already the taproot is going right down to the ground. So I'm going to suggest doing this, which is, if you know you've got a Rosa Sharon that produces active seeds, viable seeds, cut them all off. This is Winter Gem boxwood. It's a lovely box hedge. What I'm going to do is wait until probably mid to the end of November, and then I'm going to use a hedge trimmer. All I'm going to do is just take the long stuff out. So there you go, some advice on pruning in the fall, or rather be very careful. So if you're going to whip out your secateurs, just be very careful what you prune. And you'll certainly have a more colorful spring if you do it correctly.